Oh hey Geeky, that's a nice video you got there. Any updates on part 2? No, not much. Though I will say, the script for the animatic segments is finalized and the voice actors from part 1 have been sent said script to record their lines, but that's about as far as I've gotten. Part 2 is a marble sculpture and I've only had the time to chip away at the corners of the block I started with. I've got a few films I'm working on this semester, including my own, not to mention 3 separate other classes I also have homework for. Suffice to say, I can only spin so many plates, you guys. But this was something I thought would be easier to get done and put out, especially since I've been spinning this video idea in my head for a while. Character design is something I like to do. Heck, taking my own artist advice of only include stuff in your portfolio that's really good into account. The fact that character design is one of the 3 tabs on my current website that I held onto should say something. On top of that, it gives me a chance to talk about some things I've learned while researching for the Wish video that I didn't have a whole lot of time to talk about in the actual Wish video because that video was long enough as it is. There's a whole lot of interesting behind the scenes facts that make the decisions in this movie both a lot more interesting, but also a lot more baffling. I'm gonna talk about 5 of the characters here because the others include spoilers for my part 2, and I think I'd rather wait until that's out before delving into design aspects that aren't relevant yet. Now then, let's dive right in. Asha was the first one I decided to tackle, and funnily enough, I was originally going to just keep her design the same. Just, you know, with an extra costume, since I'm still so upset that they didn't even bother to model her a fun new dress for when Star sprinkles some Stardust on her. Like, come on! I'll say it in a way the execs would understand. You could have sold extra dolls if you gave her another dress. Let's start with the outfit, actually, before I get to the real meat of my redesign choices, which is her hair. Asha's outfit had minimal changes, if any. There's a lot of elements I liked about it. She's got buttons shaped like pumpkin seeds as reference to her being the fairy godmother, which I think is just adorable. I reused that as the little fringe on her skirt. Also, something fun I learned from the behind-the-scenes video is that Asha is canonically 5'8", making her above average for a woman her age. And yeah, that's something I decided to keep. Chance is canonically shorter than her in the rewrite. There's also the overall color, which I know some people have opted to change her outfit colors back to the red and orange from her very early designs, but I wanted to keep the purple. I think in the behind-the-scenes stuff, the people working on the movie mentioned that purple symbolizes hope in a lot of North African cultures, and since Asha is half Moroccan, that makes sense. Even in my rewrite, I still feel that it works since, like, she's still the Afro-Spaniard. Along with that, since Chance's primary color scheme is gold and yellow, it makes him and Asha complementary colors, something to represent their relationship later in the movie. They're from 2 separate worlds, as different as can be, and yet they complete each other in such a specific way. Also, I think it'd be fun to have the implication be that Asha's purple dress is actually her pajamas, a nod to Wendy in Peter Pan spending the whole movie in her nightgown when she goes on adventures, while also being a fun way of saying, hey, Rosa's is so profitable that the royal family can afford to have purple-dyed sleepwear. So that's another thing I thought was interesting when I looked into this movie and what it got right and wrong. I do believe Carthage was where a lot of purple dye was being made in the 1200s, and with trade being the way it would make sense that Rosas can get so much of it, especially since they used it in their flags and banners and stuff in the movie. Like, they're using purple dye in mass-produced stuff. As for the princess dress, it's pretty basic in the sense that it's a lot like Amaya's dress in the original movie. But there's one thing I flipped around. The star patterning that Amaya has on her inner layer and Magnifico has on the inside of his cape is on the outside layer of Asha's dress. It's a way to show that she's different from her parents. Like how Ariel in The Little Mermaid was designed with a shell bra that's a different color from her tail, unlike her sisters, showing that she's different from them. Asha is someone who embraces the stars. Wishing on a star is the first thing she does when she realizes that's an option after all. Amaya and Magnifico resent the stars, but they still exploit them for their own benefit. It would be so easy to just not have stars on their outfit whatsoever, but putting them on there has this hint of like, yeah, you hate the stars, but if that's the case, why are you wearing them? Also, the second star to the right is on Asha's chest, because why not? One aspect from the concept art I decided to also use is Asha having beads and trinkets in her braids, because it wouldn't have cost extra to model those in anyways. It's not like 2D where you'd have to redraw them over and over again, and I know a lot of people would prefer her to have her natural hair, but in the art book they say they went with the braids because Asha is native Moroccan on her mom's side, and braided hair is a very important thing in that culture, so they thought Asha having her hair in braids would be a fun nod to that. Now you might be saying, but geeky, Asha's parents in your rewrite are Spanish. White passing maybe, but they're still Spanish. This wouldn't apply. And you're right. There's another thing from the art book that made me decide to keep the braids. One of the things brought up was Walt Disney's tendency back in the day to use contemporary elements in his character designs in his films, despite the time periods they're set in. Snow White, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty are the specific movies they cite as examples of this, which makes sense, at least like looking at the way these girls were designed and looking at movie stars of the time. They wanted to give Asha braids for a similar reason, not only because of her Moroccan heritage, but also because her hairstyle is more modern, at least in terms of the year the movie is being made, 2023. The only thing is, the art book calls them box braids when I believe these are cornrows, since they're braided pretty close to the skin while box braids aren't. Whatever, braids. We'll call them that. And along with the stuff from the art book, another aspect of Asha's hairstyle that I went with was inspired by a book I read in high school, Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. It's a heavy book, but it was one of like 3 books I actually enjoyed reading in school, so it stuck with me. It deals a lot with African American culture as well as race stuff, namely the main character, Janie Crawford, dealing with the societal implications of being a biracial woman. So, you know, taking inspiration from a biracial black woman for another biracial black woman. One analysis of the book I remember vividly involved Janie's hair. She has this super long hair, and over the course of the story, the way she wears it symbolizes how much life experience and agency she has. For example, during the point in her life where she's married to an abusive husband, he makes her wear her hair under a scarf because he doesn't want men gawking at her. How does this apply to Asha exactly? See, I thought it would be neat to do something similar with her hair. She ties her braids back like a ponytail as a way to symbolize the fact that she's under her parents' thumb. Magnifico and Amaya have so much control over her life. But, right at the start of the film, 2 of her braids hang loose beside her face. It's a way of giving us the hint that, hey, they don't have as much control as they think they do. Asha still has the capacity to rebel and stand up for herself when the time comes. My plan in part 2 is that during the big final face-off with Magnifico, Asha lets her hair down completely to flow free, showing she's completely free from his control. It'd give the shots of her from the original movie where her braids are flowing in the wind while she passionately sings with the people of Rosas a lot more impact, I think. Fun thing, the hair thing is one of the reasons Asha's hair gets a bit messy right before Chance's confession, because she's slowly finding a reason to fully go against her parents. Speaking of Chance... Oh man, Starboy. Everyone loves this guy, me included, because I'm a little weirdo who's a sucker for cute romance, although there's a chance the fandom made that factoid up, since the art book doesn't actually say anything about him being a love interest, but I already talked all about that in another video. He was the first thing I drew after I saw the movie back in December of 2023, but it was more spite fan art than a character design or anything. I wasn't even planning on making a video at the time. That didn't happen until like a couple days later when I was like, I've thought about this movie too much to be normal about it, I need to do something about this or I'll die. Once I did take a crack at him, not much changed from, you know, the one picture that everyone uses when they bring up, hey, did you know Star was gonna be a whole dude? I don't know, I think I just liked his outfit too much to really do a whole lot different. But there's some elements I added myself. His glowing freckles are something that wasn't in the concept art, surprisingly. You'd think that'd be like the idea when you start with, hey, what if cute boy but Star themed? Especially with that one quick draft of Star being Asha's grandpa, since like Asha's got freckles, maybe her Saba also had freckles, although his final design and none of his older designs have freckles, so that probably doesn't apply here. I also added a shooting star motif to his tunic and capelet. I think I just wanted to spice his clothes up a bit, and again, this is hypothetically a 3D animated film, we can afford to add whatever stupid little details we want. Speaking of stupid little details, his ears! One of the big inspirations for Chance was Peter Pan. He's got the ears, and he's also got some of the mannerisms of Peter, sitting crisscross while floating in midair, standing with his legs apart while just hovering along. This thing. But unlike Peter, Chance is not a little jerk. He's a sweet boy who wants to do his best, and he's also so stupid. Nothing but stardust behind those eyes, and boy does it show. The idea of him changing colors like real stars was something I thought up while thinking of stakes to add. That's one thing I felt Wish really lacked. Sure, Magnifico starts destroying wishes, but the consequences people face when their wish is destroyed felt really minimal. Like the movie didn't take time to really show how badly someone is affected by it. I guess it provides a good enough conflict, but it also means Asha's arc goes from, I want to give everyone's wishes back, to, I want to give everyone's wishes back. Though to be fair, I interpreted her arc more as, I want to give my grandpa and mother's wishes back, to, oh no, I need to give everyone their wish back, but that's after watching this movie almost 10 times, If it takes someone that many times to piece together the semblance of a character arc for your protagonist, something went wrong here. And while figuring out what to do about Asha's lack of an arc and the lack of stakes, I listened to the Heather Dale song, The Maiden and the Selkie. If you've never heard it, it's a song about a fisherman's daughter who catches the eye of a Selkie man, and the Selkie comes ashore with the declaration that he won't leave until she marries him because he's already spent so long yearning for her. But of course, she can't go into the water with him because she's human and would surely drown, so the Selkie decides to stay on shore with her. The problem is, Selkies can't spend more than a day out of the water in this song's lore, or they'll die. He absolutely refuses to go back to the sea without her because he loves her that much, and again, he has spent so long yearning for her, he does not want to spend any more time away from her. So the rest of the song is them going on a quest to figure out a way for the fisherman's daughter to live in the sea with him before morning, because by morning, he'll be dead. Something similar is going on here. Asha wants to hold off on getting the other wishes because she's not ready. It would be so easy for her to take all the time she needs to confront the fact that her parents are bad people and she needs to disobey them for the good of everyone, until she finds out Chance is dying and he won't go back to the sky to stave it off. Because that's the thing. Chance can just go back to the sky and come back later. He could so easily do that, but he's so stubborn and in love that he can't bear to leave Asha for a second. What if he leaves to go back to the sky for a little bit and something bad happens to her while he's gone? He'd never forgive himself. Plus, he's got a wish to grant. He can't leave before it's done. That's bad wish-granting etiquette or something. And as multiple people pointed out, the specific progression of colors represent the colors real stars go throughout their life, from blue to white to yellow to orange to red. Chance and the other stars are going to be sporting all sorts of colors by the next part. Speaking of that, someone asked about the lore explanation for why the stars all look so different from each other. It's something I came up with to explain why Starboy and Plushy Star could have existed in the same movie. In my rewrite, wishing stars are shapeshifters, but their defaults are two forms: a more human shape with the pointed ears and glowy hair, and a smaller, more marketable form. Something that a human could easily mistake for a fairy or a spirit of some kind. And the tiny little guy form takes less energy to assume, so that's why all the stars sealed away in the mirrors are little guys and not humans. It's a powerful enough spell to completely seal them away without the risk of them using their magic to break free. Let's talk about the guy behind all that, shall we? Magnifico really didn't change all that much design-wise. I liked what they were going for with him by making him look like a conventional good guy so that his villainy throws everyone off in the story once they figure out that he's evil. The problem is adding a cursed book that removes all the nuance and agency from his supposed he was evil all along character progression, but I blabbed all about that already in the main Wish video, so let's talk about something else. Namely, why does he have his first initial on the mantle of his cape? From a character design standpoint, I get it. If you really want to get across to kids that a character is full of themselves, what better way than slapping his name on his clothes? Like a way of going, I'm important, look at my name and remember it. I immediately scrapped it from his design in the rewrite for two reasons. One, kids aren't stupid. If you write the guy correctly, which the movie both did and didn't, they shouldn't need the extra hint to pick up on the fact that he's a narcissist. Especially since, you know, he's the villain. Narcissistic Disney villains like Gaston or the Evil Queen don't need their first initial on their clothes to get across that they're full of themselves, you know? And two, he's a medieval king. He's not Syndrome. He's already got his royal heraldry on the mantle since we can clearly see the rose iconography under his first initial. You don't need the M on top of that. So just like, yoink it away, we don't need it. Other than that, I thought his outfit was alright, especially the color scheme. I said it briefly in the Wish video that the specific colors they went with, white and blue, helped give him the immediate appearance of, oh, he must be a good guy, because both colors are associated with purity and goodness. But the thing the visual development artists in the original movie snuck in was the fact that it's not a pure white. It's slightly off-white, as if to show, yeah, he acts good, but there's something there that seems off. Something you can't see right away if you don't know where to look. That's cool, that's great, love that, we're keeping it. Now, to talk about some less obvious design choices I made, one of them was to give Magnifico eyeliner. One could chalk that up to something like, oh, because the way Chris Pine played him is a bit more flamboyant. Well, yes, but actually no. It's because of something that newer 3D Disney style seems to lack. Unique eye shapes. A lot of Disney villains in the classic hand-drawn films have these sharp and angular eyes, some with thick lines around them to really accentuate it, and some just actually wore eye makeup. Realistically, Disney probably wouldn't give Magnifico's final design these same sort of sharp eyes since it would clash with the art style, but you could easily give him eyeliner to kind of give him the illusion of it. That's what makeup's for, after all, making it look like your face is built different than it actually is. Speaking of his face, the beard also changed. Not because I had a problem with the old one, it's because I had trouble drawing it. Yeah, skill issue, I know. Like I said in the Wish video, not all my decisions are good ones. Some of them are just because I'm not as creative or as skilled as someone who, you know, is an actual professional in the industry. Also, the magic staff stays here from the start. That was something that always felt weird in the film. I get they probably had him make the magic scepter later as a way to show off how callous he'd become and how quick he is to destroy wishes for his own benefit, but it would have made sense for him to have one at the start since, you know, royal scepters are a thing. I feel like I don't need to explain this. Having it double as a wizard's staff just makes sense. Plus, it kind of helps him read as a king, in my opinion, since he doesn't have much else aside from his color scheme and the lavish cape to really denote the royalty, if it makes sense. There was a funny anecdote in one of the behind-the-scenes videos that they didn't give him a crown because he loves his hair too much and he probably wouldn't dare to wear one. There's other stuff about his design for the rewrite that I'd love to talk about, but I gotta save it for after part 2 comes out because boy howdy, that's spoilers! So let's talk about some behind-the-scenes stuff I discovered in the art book that had me like, oh my god, why did you not imply any of this in the movie? So, something interesting I found out in the art book came in bits about Magnifico's castle, namely the fact that a lot of design elements regarding the castle are explained away with this phrase. Oh yeah, Magnifico discovered this when he took over. Excuse me, took over? Someone else was here in Rosas before he was? Now, you could chalk this up to, oh well, maybe that's an older version of the story. No, the way this is phrased and talked about in the art book, they make these elements sound like canon stuff from the final film. Heck, remember that secret layer that I already pointed out in the main video was added so late into production that they couldn't come up with much of an explanation as to why it was there? That was a lie, they did give a reasoning. In the art book, which is, Magnifico just found it when he first moved in. Like, bro, I thought he built the castle! This would have added so much more dimension to Magnifico's character in the original film if they explained the fact that he somehow came to Rosas and took it over when there were people possibly already there. Like, if you have the movie start with, oh, they found this empty island in the Mediterranean and built their new kingdom there to provide a safe haven for anyone hoping to live out their dreams, and then reveal later that, oh nah, people are already here and he took over the place, you've got a villain who's also possibly a colonizer? I don't know if that's the right word. You know, guy takes over place and lies to his people about him not taking over the place. Like, no, I built Rosas many years ago. What are you talking about? Do you see why this movie is my villain origin story? Speaking of stuff that's not elaborated on in the film that made me go a bit insane. Oh boy, Valentino. I so badly wanted Valentino to be a likable and well-written character in this movie, because without the not-so-good writing of him, the concept is galaxy-brained in my opinion. Like, a cute Disney animal sidekick is one thing, like, you know that's an inevitability in movies like this. Finding a valid excuse to make the animal sidekick a baby goat in pajamas? Amazing. 10 out of 10. I wish this movie had more time to cook if only so Valentino could be as liked as they wanted him to be. Plus, they've got this background gag where if Valentino's not, like, involved in the scene, but he's still physically there and they need him to do something, you'll just spot him in the background really high up on the shelves and tables and stuff, because, you know, he's a goat. The more I researched about Valentino, though, the more I was like, wow, you guys really didn't have time to fit all these details in so that his inclusion would make sense. And that all started with this line from the movie.
Careful! My mother was shaved for that yarn.
One time while watching the movie over Discord with some friends, I made a joke about how the line is nonsensical because goats don't have wool like sheep. I thought maybe the writers flubbed it up or something for the bit. That is until Rusty, the same friend who blabbed in my DMs about Muslim Iberian architecture, pointed out that there are some breeds of goat that have their hair shaved to be made into a kind of yarn called mohair. I looked into it and ended up finding out about Angora goats, and suddenly, everything started to make sense. Firstly, Angora goats are a Turkish goat breed, and with trade being the way it is, and Rosas already having people and cultural elements from the Middle East, having goats from Turkey would not be a stretch. But more importantly, there's a fun detail in the art book that I didn't use for obvious reasons, because it has to do with Asha's mom, who is not here anymore. Asha's mom, Sakina, in the original film, is a seamstress. She has a spinning wheel in their house, which coincidentally is only seen in the concept art. Trust me, I've seen this movie a bunch of times. Never do they show a spinning wheel in Asha's house anywhere in the film. The closest we get in terms of a hint is the bowl of yarn that Valentino and Star hide in for one bit. This fact about Asha's mom being a seamstress is further fleshed out in the art book by them saying that she's the one who made Valentino's pajamas, which, aw. But back to those Angora goats for a second. So you see how these guys look, right? The curly hair and the straight horns. Well, if you look at some of Valentino and even Asha's early concept art, what's that? What's that? Do you see those goats there? Much more blatant Angora goats that might have answered some questions that I had? Anyways, they could have better justified Valentino's existence in this movie by making it more obvious that he's an Angora goat and being raised by Asha's mom so she can shear him for yarn because she's a seamstress and would need yarn. Valentino could have had curls. This is all to say that I found an excuse to give Valentino cute little curls, and I think the artists at Disney were silly for not at least keeping that design element from the concept art. I know in my rewrite this wouldn't make a whole lot of sense because Asha's mom is not a seamstress, and they wouldn't have much of a use for Angora goats in the palace. I don't know, I'd like to think maybe when Asha was allowed to go and find a familiar to help her with her magical studies finally, her dad gave her a bunch of options, but in true Disney princess fashion, she didn't like any of them and by chance one day found a farmer selling his livestock in Rosas. And one of the livestock was a runty little goat that wasn't doing too well, and Asha decided, well, that won't do, let me take care of him. Maybe doing that sheltered rich kid trope thing of paying way too much for little baby Valentino, but she kept her word, she took care of him, and now Valentino is probably the most loyal animal companion Asha could ask for. On top of that, I decided to give him tiny baby horns. He's meant to be a little baby goat, so it makes sense why they opted to leave him without horns in the movie, but I wanted to keep them for symbolic purposes. The writers for Wish mentioned that they believe it to be a rule among Disney sidekicks that they should be at least a little smarter than the human characters in the movie. Namely characters like Pascal and Maximus from Tangled, or Abu and Aladdin, Cricket and Mulan. You get it. But they very distinctly describe Valentino as not that. In fact, I think it was Mark Kennedy in one of the behind-the-scenes videos that labeled him as confidently incorrect when it comes to his demeanor. And I think that's great. It's also something that might be accentuated with the little baby horns. He's confidently incorrect. He's a goat with horns and he's ready to use them. He's got this brand new thing, therefore he's a big boy now and is ready for anything. But Valentino's horns are small and are not big enough for him to do what a grown-up goat can. It gives him the illusion that he can take on the world, but he's still just a little baby. I think that's about it for Valentino, so let's move on to the last character I'll talk about for today. Oh boy, let's talk a little more in depth about the 7 friends, shall we? The 7 friends represent 2 issues I have with this movie. Its blatant need to put Disney references over good writing and character, and the bloated cast of named characters. Which is funny because Hal and Dario's names aren't even dropped until the 3rd act of the movie, and it's during barely audible background dialogue.
There are 6 more traitors, Your Majesty. Dahlia, Garbo, Dario, Safi, Hal, and Basima!
Again, I have seen this movie way too many times, trust me, their names are never dropped any other time before that. A lot of stuff mentioned in the art book about the teens and Asha in general, well, it makes some of the decisions make sense, but it doesn't make them necessarily good. Though I will admit, me being fine with Asha's characterization and feeling weird about everyone else not liking her made a lot more sense to me when I looked at some of the behind-the-scenes stuff and found out that a lot of Asha's mannerisms are based on one of the Viz Dev guys' real teenage daughter. Like, that is actual teenager behavior they're using for Asha. There's the quirky girl stuff, and then there's that. I found something similar going on with the teens. One of the VizDev people that worked on Wish said that they gave Asha a lot of friends because they noticed that teens tend to travel in packs. Talking about teenagers like they're animals or something. Though I will say, as a former teenager, that tracks. I don't know if I've ever seen as many as 8 hanging out together on the regular, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. The problem comes when your movie has only 90 minutes to flesh out these characters. For a TV show or even just like a longer movie, they might have worked. The problem is they don't give them nearly enough screen time as it is, and on top of that, 2 of them are super plot relevant. The twist with Simon revolves around you know, remembering him and his motivations, but when you treat the 17s as a unit, they all kind of blend into each other and none of them have enough time to be individuals. The same happens with Dahlia. She's supposed to be Asha's closest friend, and even with the extra screen time she's given, she still ends up being forgettable because, again, there's 7 friends to remember, and they all blend together as a unit because that's how you designed them. They're the 7 dwarves. The easiest fix I found was to scrap everyone except the 2 that the movie deemed the most important, which is Dahlia and Simon. And as mentioned in the Wish video, I decided instead to make them twins and have 5 little siblings they support by themselves. You still got your 7 dwarfs reference, but now you've got Dahlia and Simon as individuals, and then their 5 little siblings get treated as a unit. And yes, Dahlia and Simon are biracial. Genetics are weird, and there's already 2 canon interracial couples in Rosas, and with the sheer racial diversity on the island, it would not be far-fetched for Simon and Dahlia's parents to be rewritten to be Celtic and East Asian. That's something interesting I found while researching, actually. They named Dahlia's specific East Asian heritage, and it's Taiwanese. I was originally going to make a technical observation here about how Taiwan didn't exist when Wish was set in the 1200s. Not in like a 3Ts kind of way, like they hadn't settled the island yet, but I actually found out that there's an indigenous population on the island that's been there for a long time before the Han Chinese started settling on the island in the 17th century. But the way Dahlia's character is fleshed out in the Wish media outside of the film just left me more confused, because it says she got her love of baking from her late grandma, who used to specifically make jidangao. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I couldn't find much information on the dish, so now I'm not sure if that's something Han Chinese people brought over to Taiwan, or if that's something the indigenous population made. On top of that, I also discovered that Dahlia was originally named Daishin. In one of the deleted scenes, that's the name Asha calls her. And this isn't even scratch audio. Ariana DeBose was voicing Asha at this point. This was something they were very close to using.
Asha! Dishin!
She's okay.
This is, yet again, another thing I couldn't get anything conclusive about in terms of whether this is indigenous Taiwanese or Han Chinese in origin. Google was even giving me Sanskrit meanings. Anyways, Disney should have given Dahlia's character indigenous Taiwanese elements in the movie, I think, because that would have been neat. That, or maybe they should have just had her be Han Chinese but not specify from where specifically. I don't know, we're here to talk about what I did, not what they did. Originally, I wasn't going to change Dahlia's design. I was content with the one they settled on in the movie. It's simple, it's cute. Maybe I would have changed the hair a little bit because my friend kept calling her Dora, but I liked it. Then I saw her old concepts in the art book and was like, oh, these are cute actually, yoink. The main thing I did was the hairstyle change like I originally wanted to do, because it felt weird that she didn't tie her hair back while actively working in a kitchen. And then I realized that the way I drew her with her bun and bangs, she kinda ended up looking like Cinderella. Which fits! Asha, the fairy godmother, helping her friend Dahlia, Cinderella, get her wish back so she can make it come true. Another thing I kept was Dahlia having a crutch. Someone I know pointed out that the type of crutch she's using wouldn't have existed in the 1200s, but I don't know, we can probably make an exception. The original Disney people were the ones who wanted to stick with the time constraints, not me. I can make an exception for Dahlia's mobility aid. Most of the information about Dahlia's development in the art book is about her being disabled, mostly just about how many people they consulted to make sure they could portray her correctly and competently. And with her voice actress being disabled as well, it came off as rather sweet. They tried so hard with her, but again, Dahlia doesn't get as much screen time as I feel she should, so the hard work doesn't get to shine as much as the writing team no doubt would have liked. But hey, I saw the hard work y'all did. And I'm already giving Dahlia a lot more screen time in my rewrite, so it's a perfect excuse to highlight your hard work. Alright, and there you go, 5 character designs from part 1. I had contemplated whether to include Charo in this video as well, but I literally just gave him a collar with the rose heraldry on it. Everything else I ripped straight from the concept art. Although a fun thing to note, the book calls him a Sphinx cat, but he has spots and stripes, which Sphinxes don't have. Not to mention Charo clearly has fur, something Sphinxes also don't have. Maybe they meant a Mao? Maos actually have the spots and stripes, and both breeds sound Egyptian enough for the confusion to occur. This feels like the art book calling Asha's hairstyle box braids all over again. Anyways, I'm gonna probably do this again after part 2 comes out, because a lot of the design aspects I'd like to talk about with the second half of the cast are spoilers for part 2. You'll have to wait for my thoughts and behind the scenes stuff about Simon or Queen Amaya, or the funny blinky lady stuck in the mirror. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry that part 2 is taking so long. Gotta work on my schoolwork first. Hope you enjoyed this little behind the scenes thingy, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Okay, bye.